Welcome everybody to this week's Retired Life in Mexico No Bull live stream. I'm gonna give, like as always, give some people time to get in the room. Give me a shout out where you're from. Give a chance to say hello. We have Cindy K, Profe in the room, Yamilet in the room, saying hi. Previous to coming on. Just before we start, a little bit of housekeeping. I know that I just released a video about safety in the area of Nuevo Laredo. There's been a lot of going on in the McAllen, Laredo, Nuevo Laredo area, and it's even affecting the port of entry at Eagle Pass. Hey, Jack Walsh, coming from San Francisco Bay, welcome. And so I did a video. If you look at the video and you watch the video, the actual shooting that you see on the video, I just clipped it for 4 or 5 seconds. But that was actually at the Columbia Bridge that held up traffic for a long period of time. Somebody even asked, well, what would be the alternative? I always talk about not going through Nuevo Laredo. There's a lot of people that argue with me on that. But usually I suggest the Eagle Pass port of entry. Someone asked, well, what about Del Rio? Hey, Evelyn from San Francisco, welcome. I usually talk about Del Rio. Someone asked me Del Rio. Del Rio is also in the same state of Coahuila, down the road from Eagle Pass. The problem that they're having in the state of Coahuila is the violence is actually spilling over into the state. So it's affecting the state of Coahuila. So, and actually one of those roads to Piedras Negras, actually where you enter into Eagle Pass, is one of the roads that you come down to get back down into Saltillo and Monterrey, is one of the roads that's being affected. Actually, the state police, I think, are blocking it off and trying to stop the violence from coming over. So just be careful. Avoid Laredo and McAllen for sure. The Columbia International Bridge, I mean, we just had a week ago shootings there. And if you want to pass through Eagle Pass, just be careful. As I always say, just be very, very careful. And no, I'm not being a fear monger or anything else, and I'm not trying to scare people from coming into Mexico. But what I am doing is letting you guys know, just be careful. Common sense. There's a lot of stuff going on, and it's a matter of being in the wrong place at the wrong time. That's what I always say. It's not about which place is safer, if Mexico's safer, not safer. It's about being in the wrong place at the wrong time and doing your homework. If you do your homework, I guarantee you Mexico can be the safest place that you'll ever live in your life. And that goes for anywhere in the world. So just be on the lookout. I do know that some people had some trips planned in the near future. Just be very, very, very careful. I do know a couple of chauffeurs that go through that area often. They keep track of those areas. Hey, Retribution from New York, welcome. They go through those areas a lot, but they also keep track of what's going on. They keep track of the local news. They know when things heat up or when they cool down. But we're trying to bring you updates. Hopefully things will cool down enough to where at least Eagle Pass is still safe. But there's several things going on right now that I really don't want to discuss with the cartel situation. That's increasing. Well, one of them is that they just arrested one of the major cartel leaders, but there's a lot going on in that area right now. And you just don't want to get stuck in the crossfire. And that's all I'm telling you guys as far as safety. We will be taking off next Tuesday to Cabo. Yep, that's right. No GoFundMes. I'm not asking for any donations for any trips to Disneyland or anywhere else in Mexico. No GoFundMes. I'm paying for it myself. I'm going to be actually going next week to Cabo, and hopefully next week's stream, I'll be streaming from Cabo. I'll try my best to do a video. I'm not much of a vlogger, but I'll try to do my best to put something out. So you might not see any. I'm trying to put one video together before I leave, and we should be off to Cabo for 8 days. And hopefully I can go live, just depending on the internet connection and everything else, but I will be using a mobile device. So it's not going to be as fancy as this one, but I'll be able to tell you hello from Cabo. Now, today I'm going to cover driving in Mexico. I'm going to do several. I'm going to do it kind of in parts, but I'm going to talk about the way things work in Mexico, how people drive in Mexico. It's a lot different than in the United States, or I don't know about Canada. I haven't driven in Canada. I've driven in some Middle Eastern countries, also other places in South America, which is kind of the same. But some of the caveats of driving in Mexico. And then I also want to go over a couple of rules because I know a lot of you come down here as tourists. You want to go down and basically drive down to different places. Also, individuals want to bring their vehicle in if you're a temporary resident. Terry from Cabo, I'm going to be there next Tuesday. Welcome. It's not me from Illinois. Welcome too. But basically, what we're going to discuss is kind of like how people drive here, so you won't be surprised. People use their horns a lot here. A lot of times on two-lane highways, you'll see people coming head-on, and you just need to know what to do. There's these things called topes. We're going to go over that. And then I'm also going to go, like I said, over the rules, which we were just talking about. What is a tip, temporary import permit? What do you need? Who can drive your vehicle when you're here? Can you drive with a United States driver's license if you're here? What if you're a resident? What should I get a Mexican driver's license? Those types of things I'm going to go. And I'm even going into what happens if you get into an accident, because there's some caveats. You can actually get arrested if you get into an accident here. And it's a rule that's, it's not a suggestion. It's an actual rule that there's no exceptions. But I'm going to tell you what to do if you ever get in that situation, so that hopefully if you're detained, you're let out as quickly as possible. Also, insurance regulations, those types of things, what's expected of you when you are driving in Mexico, either with Mexican plates or with your U.S. plates, as through a tip. I'm going to go through a couple of the caveats of driving here. First, there's no such thing as a speed limit. You're going to find out people will drive real slow, super slow, drive real fast. They'll drive whatever they want to. Chris, welcome from Galveston. They'll drive any way they want to. Normally it's faster than the speed limit. You'll also notice, because I've done it myself, I've gone speeding past a traffic cop or someone on the side of the road at a large velocity, at a speeding, and I have that reaction that oh shoot, let's hit the brakes before because they're running. Or I've even been speeding when they're running radar, and I haven't really been stopped ever for a speeding violation. But you could get stopped for a speeding violation, you could get stopped for a speeding violation. That does happen. A lot of times when you do get stopped, especially with foreign-plated vehicles, a lot of times they will say you were speeding or whatever, but a lot of times it's also to detect the documentation on your vehicle. There can be some serious consequences if you don't have the right documentation. What I mean is a tip, which we're going to go into a little bit later. But that's one of the things that you need to be very careful of. Also, if you're driving at a fast rate of speed, there's not this courtesy of going over to the shoulder. If someone comes up to you at a high rate of speed, they'll usually flash their lights at you. Don't take the attitude that, hey, I'm driving the speed limit like you do, like I do in the United States. Well, you know what? So too bad, so sad if you're in a hurry. No, you actually should pull over to the shoulder for these people to pass you. And the reason why I say that, especially on two-lane roads, people, what they'll do is they'll actually get into the oncoming lane of traffic and they'll start flashing their lights. It freaked me out the first time when I saw it, and when I was driving from Querétaro to San Miguel, or San Miguel to Querétaro, and they'll come in this, and you're like, oh shoot, this guy's coming head on. And literally, they expect you to move over to the shoulder so they can pass the car. It's really weird. That causes a lot of accidents, you'll see. and you'll see a lot of people just, if you're behind them, they'll like just pull out in oncoming traffic and take off. And then you'll see like there's a car coming and you'll see the car pulling over. You just got to be very, very careful, especially when you're on 2-lane roads, that you make sure also if you're, that you make sure you are aware of that, because if you need to move over, because those people are going to come straight on and they'll actually hit you head on. The other thing that's very, very common is they expect you, if you're driving slow, to drive to the right lane. It's like anywhere else. The fast lane's the left lane. And if you want to pass the vehicle as quickly as possible, and then get over into the right lane as soon as possible to let those people. The other thing is that a lot of people here in Mexico make use of their horn a lot. We're used to in other areas and other countries that when they honk the horn, we're very used to somebody got teed off at me because I did something, or I cut in front of them, or whatever it might be. People use horns here more as a safety precaution. In other words, you'll even see, sometimes you'll even be like, what did I do? What did I do? You know, someone will honk, beep, beep, and they'll pass you. And you think, wow, they got mad at me because I was in the lane, or I didn't pull over, or, you know, or why did they honk at me? Because I'm just doing my own business. I'm in my own lane. I wasn't even in their way. They just honked when they passed me. Like, why did they honk? A lot of times they'll honk to let you know that, hey, I'm in your blind spot. And a lot of times, especially if they're in your blind spot, they'll honk, and then they'll keep going and passing you. And that's just to let you know I'm here. That's why they honk. Sometimes when they're going through an intersection, someone will go through an intersection and beep, beep, honk their horn, and it's because they're letting you know I'm going through the intersection. People make use of the horn. A lot of times, too, they make use of the horn to say, hey, move over, or hey, they communicate with the horn a lot. So don't be so surprised if you get honked at. That was one of the weirdest things that I had to get used to, especially in a big city in Monterrey. People will honk from everything from I'm coming out into the main road to I'm just right there behind you. Also, people here are very aggressive. Sometimes they won't let you in. You got to kind of force yourself in. You gotta be kind of brave, so to speak, and you gotta kind of go in a little bit. But that's one thing you'll find, especially in big cities. You won't find that as much in the use of the flashing lights. Flashing lights means move over, and it means move over if they're passing you, or it means move over if they're coming onto you on oncoming traffic. Mexico Adventure says if you're driving in Michoacan State or Guadalajara, don't honk your horn at all. You can get shot. Yeah, that is true. There's certain areas in Mexico you don't want to honk your horn, especially if you're angry. Horns here are not to take out your frustration. A horn is here for, especially here in Mexico, is usually used to warn people that you're here, warn people that, hey, actually when I got into the fender bender that I got into, I did a video on it. I ingressed in the other lane and the guy honked to let me know that he was there, but it was a little bit too late by the time I was able to move over. And he was still staying in his lane, assuming that I was just going to ingress back into my lane quick enough. Instead of going or swerving. He didn't even swerve. He kept going straight ahead. But see, that's because everybody here in Monterrey understands that if you honk the horn, the person moves back over or ingresses back into their lane. So my misunderstanding actually caused me an accident of somebody honking the horn. So you just have to be a little bit careful. The other thing that you have to be very careful of is when I said there's no speed limits, there's also, depending if you're going, especially through towns, when you're crossing through a town, there's these things called topes. They're speed bumps. Normally, there's going to be a sign on the side of the road with a little hump, with the car going over the little hump. But not all the time are these signs there. So you could be going at a high rate of speed, and when you hit these topes, it's not a fun task. So you need to be careful, be on the lookout for them. Many times, most of the times they're marked with yellow. You can see them far ahead of time. Sometimes they come up on you, especially. One thing I always say, don't drive at night. And I say don't drive at night for safety reasons, but I also say don't drive at night for hazard reasons. And the topes is one of them. You can, and it depends. They have them all over the place. There's no rhyme or reason sometimes. Many times it's to slow down traffic when you're going through a small town, especially where there's a lot of traffic. So you do need to be careful for the toque, the topes. So that's where we're at with, those are the little idiosyncrasies of driving in Mexico. The best thing to do is just to try to keep up with traffic the best that you can. Also, a lot of the highways that expats travel, for example, Highway 57, which is a very popular highway to get to through, that comes up through Monterrey and then up through Texas to get to the States. If you live in Ajijic, Guadalajara, San Miguel, those areas. The other thing that you have to take into consideration is that there's a lot of truck traffic. These are major highways where commercial traffic is. So you need to be very conscientious of truck traffic, semi-traffic. And then, of course, you sometimes run into roads that are very, they're not as spacious. So just make sure you be careful on those things. And actually, it's not me. I need to rethink. And I'm going to do this a little bit interactively because people are making some comments here. I need to rethink bringing my car with me. Does Mexico have roundabouts? It depends where you're at. I always use, and then actually, Chris Langley said very few roundabouts. It depends where you're at. There are roundabouts to get back, but it depends on the highway. For example, here in Monterrey, it's a big city. So a lot of times, the only way to get to the other side of the highway is to go through a roundabout in the middle of the highway, which kind of, there's oncoming traffic, a lot of traffic. And then there's also underpasses. There are very few overpasses here in Monterrey, but most of them are underpasses. And if you miss one of the underpasses, the next underpass is way down. Also, if you go on Highway 57, sometimes the roundabout to turn around isn't till the next town. Usually at a gas station, because usually the gas station is in the middle, and you can stop at the gas station, then go back the other way. So you need to make sure that you watch out for that with roundabouts, because you got to be very sure that you're gonna, if you need to turn around, that you take that first one, because the next one might not be coming very soon. Mexico Adventure was also saying, another thing I've seen is debris with nails is thrown into the road, especially on 57, but your luck. The next place will be a Volca. Yeah, what he's saying is that basically a lot of time, and actually this is a way of actually, it doesn't happen a lot, but this is a way that road bandits will rob people. They put obstacles in the road that maybe, or they may put something in the road, but there's nails inside of it, like a fruit, oranges, stuff like that. And they have actual nails, not nails, but something that'll puncture your tires. And you might just, that's the other thing too, is when you see any kind of obstacle in the road, even if it looks something as simple as like, oh, I'm just going to run over an apple. That apple it's very common for them to put the spikes inside these apples, and then or a bag, a plastic bag. You'll see a plastic bag in the middle of the road. Always try to avoid that, or go around it or go over it. Don't go with your tires. And then when you hit that plastic bag, you hit the spike. Next thing you know, you have a flat tire. Someone comes up and they rob you. Or they'll steal your stuff and come and that's one way of like kind of stopping a person in the traffic, because you have to pull over. You have a flat tire. What Mexico Adventure is saying is that, they'll put nails in the road, and then 3 miles down the road, a Volca. If people aren't, you'll see these things on the side of the road. They'll say Volca. vulcanizador. What they are is they're tire repair shops. So if you see, or if you get a flat tire and you need a tire repaired, you'll see the sign Vulca, Vulka. And that's where basically they'll repair your tires for you. It's like a tire repair shop where they repair punctures. My sister-in-law even had to stop by one time because the car was overheating and they helped with the radiator. It's kind of like now the only thing with Volcas that I will tell you, there are usually holes in the wall. You don't want to stop at one in a remote place unless it's in an absolute emergency that, like you can't go anymore. I mean, literally, or you might even have to walk to the Volca because you can see it from where you had stopped your car and you can't move your car. I just would advise to try to stay away from them, just for the sake of staying away unless you really need to use them. But there's a group that will go up and down the highways. They will help you. They're called I think the Green or the Blue Angels or whatever. They are usually driving around in pickup trucks, and they have these yellow lights, and they're all marked very well. They're on certain highways. They go up and down the highway. Someone gets a flat tire, they have all the equipment to help you. They'll stop and they'll help you. But they're well-marked vehicles. It's not just anybody stopping with a pickup truck. These people even, I think, wear uniforms. The last time I saw them helping somebody on the side of the road. So be on the lookout for those. If you ever break down in Mexico, they will help you. They will help you get towed away, help you get back home. So those are a couple of the little things. Now, what I do also want to get into is someone was talking about bringing their car into Mexico. One of the big things that, and I'm going to tell you right now, if you don't have the right documentation, and this has happened, what has happened a lot of times, especially when you're coming in, you have to cross through a land border because you're driving, right? Well, when you cross through, we're used to, when we cross back into the United States from Mexico, we're used to, they have a radar, and you go through, in some places, where I cross, they even have radiation detection or x-ray machines that you go through now, kind of drive through, and then you have to go through the primary inspection, and then they scan your passport, ask you what you've been doing, where you're going, and then maybe if you don't have the right paperwork. As a matter of fact, the last time I had gotten my passport, I renewed my passport, and I was waiting for my new passport to come in. And I decided to do it online. And I, of course, live close to McAllen, Texas, so I had my new passport sent to McAllen. Well, when you get a new passport, your passport gets canceled. So when I was coming through, I had my passport card, but I was actually going to pick up my new passport. And when I gave them my passport card, of course, when they ran it through the computer, it showed that it's an invalid card. So, of course, they sent me into secondary. I had to explain, hey, look, I'm a U.S. citizen. Here's all my proof that, I'm not. And they confiscated my passport card. They said, we're going to have to take this passport card. I said, I don't care, because I'm going to go pick up my passport. But we're used to that. We're used to the people stopping us. Something's wrong, go to secondary, just like something was wrong with my passport card. When you're crossing into Mexico, sometimes there's nobody. It's just a red light and a green light. And if you get the green light, keep going. If you get the red light, you stop and customs inspects you. There's no immigration inspector there. Nobody asking you your citizenship. Nobody asking you your purpose of your trip to Mexico. So the mistake a lot of people have made is like, well, nobody asked me anything, so I'm going to keep going. And they keep going. And I guess I need all these permits, but I'll take care of them when I get to Cancun, or I get to Ajijic, or I get somewhere. I think Greg and Don showed that they were two YouTubers. I don't know if they're still doing videos, but they actually did just that. They ended up going all the way down to Riviera Maya, and they found out that they didn't have an FMM. They didn't even have an FMM. Mexico, when you're crossing back into Mexico, it is the person's responsibility. For example, if you're a tourist, it's your responsibility to check in with immigration, get an FMM. If you are a tourist, it's your responsibility to get your TIP, temporary import permit. And you can get your TIP under two circumstances. Either if you're coming in on an FMM, you can get a tip for up to whatever days they give you in your FMM. So if you come in on FMM, which I will say most land borders will give you, they'll either say, and here's the deal, it's different than the airports. They'll usually say, do you want 7 days? Because that's free. And then if you want more than 7 days, or 180 days or more than 7 days, then you have to pay a fee. And then you pay them the immigration fee. And when you come in an airport, your immigration fee is already included. Now, if you come in as a resident, you shouldn't be getting charged that immigration fee. And I know some people have talked about it, that when you get charged extra on your ticket, if you argue with the plane, you call the customer service. A lot of times they'll give you your money back for the immigration fee. But it's your responsibility to stop to do that. And the temporary import permit, let's say you say, I want more than 7 days, I want to pay. Usually they're going to give you 180. That's very typical. Even when they were cracking down on immigration at the airports, usually on the land borders, it was 180 days for several various reasons. The computers hadn't caught up yet. And a lot of the port of entry still don't have the newer systems installed. So they just go ahead and stamp your passport 180 days. Now with the electronic FMM, I don't know how, but now with the electronic FMM, Congress has stressed quicker entries into the country and quicker exits out of the country. So that spurred immigration to start giving 180 days again. But like I always say, 180 days isn't guaranteed. So, but more than likely, I'm not going to argue with anybody that the 180 days has gone away. No, it hasn't gone away. They're going to give you 180 days. Then you have to go over to customs and ask for your tip after you get your. But normally what we used to do is we used to go to customs first and say, we're going to get a tip. And then we show them our form our immigration form that we're going to fill out. Now that it's electronic, I don't know on the land borders, they're still using the paper form, because someone was telling me that there's on some port of entries, they're still using the paper form. But they'll look at your paperwork. The car has to be registered in your name or your spouse's name. If it's registered in your spouse's name, then you have to bring your marriage certificate, and you have to prove that you are an authorized user of the vehicle, or you need a letter from the actual owner of the vehicle. Some ports of entry will require you, if the car's financed, to have a letter from the finance company that you have permission to take the car out of the country. It's good to have that documentation. I've never been asked for it. Out of all the time that I ever traveled into Mexico prior to living here and needed a tip, nobody ever asked me for it. If the car was financed. You have to have a current copy of your vehicle registration or title. Not a copy. You actually have to have the original vehicle registration. Normally, in most states, you have to have the original anyway if you have to present it to state or local police. And then they'll send you to do some copies. Usually it's within that little area, or you bring your own copies. Have 2 or 3 copies of each document, including your marriage certificate, your driver's license, everything. And then you go over, you get your FMM or your 180 days, and then you come back and you apply for the 180-day temporary import permit. Let's say they just gave you 90 days. I'm just saying, we're being facetious here. They give you 90 days, then they're going to give you the temporary import permit for 90 days. The temporary import permit is tied to the amount of days you have permission to be in the country. Now, people are going to ask me, what if I'm a temporary resident? What if I'm a permanent resident? And also, what if I'm coming in for canje? What if I got that little visa and I'm coming in to fix my immigration status? Let's go over canje first. If you're coming in for canje, you do need to get a temporary import, and you have a foreign plate or vehicle. You will come in, you will show them your visa stamp. You're just going to go through the same process. You have to go in immigration. It's up to you to go to immigration. Usually immigration and the place where they issue that, and there's a little, it's called banjército where you pay. And what you do is you go to immigration, you check in, you get your canje visa, usually your canje, not your canje FMM. When you bring that FOIL visa, they're going to give you 30 days, and that 30 days is the 30 days to get to the immigration office. And then what you'll do is once they give you an FMM or they issue you your 30 days, then you go and you're going to have to get a temporary import permit. They're only going to give you your temporary import permit for 30 days. They're not going to give it to you. Even if you say, I'm going to be a resident and I'm going to be here for a year, I need a year. No, you only get it for 30 days. Then after they approve it's based on the year of your vehicle. After they approve your paperwork, they tell you to go over to a little booth. It's called banjército, and you pay a deposit. You leave a deposit on your credit card or you pay it in cash, and you get that deposit upon returning the tip. That's their guarantee that they're going to give it back. So if you get it for 180 days, that $200 or $300 or $400, depending on the year of your vehicle, will be held. Basically, then when you turn it in, there's different places where you're exiting the country. It's also your responsibility to stop and return your tip. A lot of people say, well, I never return my tip. I don't care. Well, yeah, but you also lose your deposit if you don't return your tip. And there's no booth on the way going out. There's no customs official on the way going out asking you if you, nobody's asking you if you are going to return your tip. You actually have to go to the same place where you got it. Normally, the immigration station and place where you get your tip is in the middle of both the entry and the exit. And you go to that area and you tell them you want to return. Usually there's a place where you can return it. They do it and you get your deposit back. If it's on a credit card, it's a couple of days after you return your tip. Now, if you come in for your canje, you'll get it for 30 days. Okay, so then you go and you come in, you get it for 30 days. Let's say you go to, I don't know, you're living in Cancun, San Miguel de Allende. You want to go to San Miguel de Allende, you travel to San Miguel de Allende. You get there, you get your appointment, and you get your temporary residency. Then what you have to do is go to the closest SAT office, which is usually at an airport, at an international airport. You need to return that tip and get your deposit back, and then apply for another tip based on your resident card. So let's say you get, okay, my temporary residency is for 1 year, or maybe you're married to a Mexican, so you can get 2 years right off the bat. Usually your temporary residency, you get 1 year, and then you renew it for up to 4 the second time you come back. If you're married to a Mexican citizen, it's automatically 2 years because you have to be married 2 years to convert it to permanent. So let's say you have it for 1 year or 2 years. They will give you a tip for the amount of time that until your residency expires. Then what you'll need to do, if you don't want to leave Mexico, is you do the same thing. When you renew your residency for the next following 3 years, you get your new residency, you cancel that tip that you have because usually when you apply for new residency, you will apply at least 30 days in advance, so you won't overlap. In other words, there won't be a period of time where you're illegally in the country. So what you do is once you cancel the old tip, and then you get a new one for the following 3 years. It'll last all the way for the following 3 years if that's what you applied for to continue. Or if you applied for 2 years and you apply for the following 2 years of temporary residency, you get another tip for the following 2 years. And now, if you convert to permanent or after 4 years, you cannot own a foreign plated vehicle and you cannot drive a foreign plated vehicle in Mexico. That's the law. Now, here's some exceptions. And I see a lot of people do this. One will get temporary residency and one couple will get permanent, the couple. One will get permanent residency and one will get temporary residency. And then they always say, well, because one of us is going to keep temporary residency so we can bring our American vehicle in. Now, here's the thing. This is up to the discretion of the people that stop you on the side of the road. Technically, there is an exception for family members. For example, if your wife or your husband get a tip for the 3 years or 4 years and you're a permanent resident, I'm not supposed to be driving the car, right? Well, you can drive the vehicle if it is an immediate family member. In other words, your wife, your son, your father, your mother, or like basically it's basically a kid. You are the your father, your mother, or your kids, or your spouse. They can drive the vehicle as long as the person with the tip is in the vehicle with you. For example, let's say my wife got the tip and I'm driving the vehicle, but my wife is with me. We take turns driving, whatever it might be on a trip. I get stopped. They ask me for my tip. I'm a permanent resident. I'm driving the vehicle, but my wife's in the vehicle with me. She's the one that has the tip. They don't have a problem with it. Now, why is the tip? Why do I make it so important? And why is this caveat so important not to cross the bridge and not to go into certain areas? And also, another thing that's important to note is that certain areas, which are known as free zones, you do not need a temporary import permit. The free zone would be the Baja California area and Cancun or Rivera Maya area. But here's a catch with Cancun. How do you get to Cancun? You have to get the tip to get to Cancun. So technically, maybe if you do it on your canje when you're coming in, you can get the tip and then you go to Cancun. You can return your tip, get your deposit back. But here's the catch. If you leave that free zone, you must have a tip with your vehicle. So let's say I go down to Cancun, I move to Playa del Carmen, I move to Playa del Carmen, I take my car with me, I don't need a tip. But if I take it out of that free zone area and I get caught outside the free zone area without a tip, the penalty is confiscation of your vehicle with no recourses to get it back. So just remember that. And there's no exception. I don't care what YouTuber said, that rules are just suggestions. Or laws are just suggestions here. There's no, and I will tell you right now, coming from McAllen, Texas to Monterrey, Mexico, SAT actually has a checkpoint set up where they check everybody's vehicle. And I know people that have had their vehicle confiscated because there's a lot of people in South Texas that just decide, I'm just going to go to Monterrey to visit my family and I'm not even going to get a tip. There's a lot of Texas plated vehicles, but they literally gotten their car taken away and no recourse to get it back. Literally, your car is confiscated if you are not abiding by the tip regulations. And they're very strict about that. There is no exception. There's no amount of money you're going to pay. There's no bribe you're going to pay. There's no anything that you're going to pay to get out of that. This is one of those things where a rule or a law is not a suggestion. So make sure you get your tip if you're going to be driving a foreign plated vehicle. Now, as far as you being a permanent resident, or let's say you're married to a Mexican citizen. A Mexican citizen cannot drive a foreign plated vehicle. So let's say your spouse is a Mexican citizen. Technically, they can't drive a foreign plated vehicle. But if you have a tip and you're in the vehicle with them, they will let you. Now, here's the thing to understand about this law. The federal law literally states, there's no ands, ifs, or but. The federal law states that a permanent resident, and this was a law that was passed because a lot of people would buy cars in the United States, bring them into, and actually they were even in last couple of years, they've been in this mode of trying to legalize a lot of these vehicles. But people would go and buy cars, and then they would just drive around with foreign plates. Actually, most of them were actually expired. So they passed a law that no Mexican citizen or permanent resident can drive a foreign plated vehicle. So that's what the law says. Now, what happened was that customs that makes the tip, that temporarily imports your car, made a customs regulation that says, well, we're going to make an exception that people can drive, that a Mexican citizen can drive as long as it's an immediate family member. But you need to understand that that is a customs administrative law. So if you get stopped on the road and the federal police want to take your car because you're a permanent resident, they can still take your car under the law. Most of the time, I'm not saying that. Here's what I always say, is that what you need to do is that keep all of your documentation with you. Basically, all of the stuff that you presented for your tip, that you're married, all of that stuff. And if you do get stopped, you present it. And actually, what I always do, and I'll leave a link, I think Sonia Diaz has it on her website, of the customs regulation. Okay, there's an actual customs regulation that you can print out. And I would present that to the police, because a lot of times the local police or the federal police, or even the federal police that just want to take your car, they're going to say, "Oh, well, you're a Mexican citizen, or you're a foreign, not a foreigner, a permanent resident, and we're going to take your car." Then you might want, but you're going to politely say, "But look, I'm driving under this customs regulations." Most of the time, if you're nice and polite, they're not going to give you a problem. So you shouldn't have a problem. But I always say to keep that in the glove compartment, because not all the police know. Especially when you come across municipal police. Most of the time that you get stopped for speeding, traffic violation, a lot of times it's when you're going through a little town, it's a municipal cop, and then the first thing they're going to say is, "Oh, you're a permanent resident, or you're driving a foreign plated, and you're driving a foreign plated vehicle, or you're a Mexican citizen and you're driving a foreign plated vehicle." Now, I have said that a lot of people here in South Texas that have dual citizenship, what they do is they enter as U.S. citizens and get a tip, and then they use their Mexican citizenship when they're here. And I did a video where I said, you know what, and I was actually wrong. You cannot do that. If you are a dual citizen, technically you can't get a tip, even if you show them your U.S. passport, because you're technically supposed to enter Mexico as a Mexican, regardless if you're a dual citizen. People still do it. I don't think systems are advanced enough to know, oh, you're a Mexican citizen when you show them your U.S. passport, but that's something to look out for. It's not me. Do police stop foreigners for bogus traffic violations because they expect a bribe or payoff? That happened to us in Costa Rica. Paid the bribe and they let us go. I'm gonna touch on that right now. I was gonna touch on that a little later on, but that's a great question. It's not me, because a lot of times there's misunderstandings when it comes to corruption here in Mexico. Everybody assumes when they hit a checkpoint that it's corruption. And what I mean by corruption, many times, depending on where you're at, there's certain checkpoints. Depending on where you're at, if you're driving a foreign plated vehicle, they'll pull you over. They'll ask you questions. And most of the times, especially if you're headed south, they're going to ask you, do you have large sums of money? And a lot of expats take this as, he's trying to see if I've got large sums of money so he could ask me for a bribe. That's not necessarily the case. A lot of times these checkpoints are doing kind of like drug interdiction type of stuff, and a lot of money flows south, and foreign plated vehicles are very, especially depending on what state your vehicle may be from, they might want to inspect you further. Now, there's been some people that say these checkpoints are illegal, and technically they are by the Constitution, depending on who's running them. If it's an immigration checkpoint, it's not illegal. If it's a Guardia Nacional checkpoint, it's not illegal because they have immigration authority, because there's an article in the Constitution that says they can't stop you and impede your free travel in Mexico. And a lot of people have interpreted that as all these checkpoints are illegal. Now, here's the thing about local cops or state police having a checkpoint, or somebody looking for drugs, money, guns. A lot of times they'll even ask you, do you have any guns? And you're like, well, I'm just an American that lives here. Why would I have any guns? You know, a lot of times, unfortunately, cartels use innocent looking people, expats. They pay them large amounts of money to bring guns, to bring money. There's a whole business in that. I know. So don't be insulted if you're being asked, do you have any guns? Do you have any weapons? It's not necessarily for a bribe. Now, here's the thing. When you tell me it's not me, do they stop you for bogus traffic violations? What you will see here in Mexico, and I'm just going to say this right now, is that there used to be a time where pretty much if a cop stopped you, you'd kind of put a 50 peso or 100 peso in your hand and you say, hey, why don't you let me go? Thank you very much. And it's 100 pesos in your hand. You shake his hand and you go on your way. That is kind of going away in Mexico. That's gone away. It's gone away from a long time ago. Are there corrupt cops? Are there cops that stop you? A lot of cops in tourist areas will stop you like that for whatever reason, for no reason at all. I will tell you that arguing with them and saying that I have the rights and I know what my rights are going to get you in more trouble than they are going to get you out of it. And what I mean by more trouble is the cops have the habits of doing whatever they want here. So, you know, they might just say, okay, you want to be a jerk? We'll be a jerk too, and we'll take you to jail. And then when you call the consulate, they'll say, oops, we made a mistake. Too bad you had to spend the night in jail. So you just got to be a little bit careful. But if someone says, hey, if the cop comes up to you and says, hey, you were speeding. Okay. I was speeding. How much? Now, this is very common also. What they will do is they will give you a citation. Okay. How do they figure out that you're going to show up the next day to pay your citation? Usually they take your driver's license. And that's a way of ensuring that you're going to go back and take your driver's license. Now, if you get a cop that says, hey, well, you're going to get a ticket. You're going to have to go in tomorrow. I'm going to have to take your driver's license. What they're waiting for you to do is say, well, how much can I give you to get out of this? Okay. Now, if you do that, that opens up the door to, well, the fine's normally this, and, we could fix it here for this. Or if you say, here's 300 pesos, let me go. Yeah, they'll probably maybe let you go, but you just bought into the corruption. How's the best way to handle that? The best way to handle is say, okay, give me my ticket. And normally if the cop really stopped you for bogus reasons and wants a bribe, if that was his pure intention, and he wasn't because he were speeding, if he's really corrupt, he's not going to write you a ticket. He's going to keep trying to say, yeah, but, we can fix this. No, I want my ticket. Actually, this happened to my sister-in-law here in Monterrey. Then they kept saying, well, we could take care of it here. No, give me my ticket. I'll take the ticket. But I'm going to have to take your driver's license. Take my driver's license. Or actually, you know what? Let's go to the police station right now. I'll pay my ticket. I'll pay it right now. I'll stop. We'll go down to the police station. And normally, 90% of the time, if it's a corrupt cop, he's going to just say, okay, you can go. I'm giving you a warning. Keep going. And also, usually if you have a dash cam, a lot of people don't go putting a camera in the cop's face. That's going to get you in. But if you have a dash cam or you tell them that you're recording this, normally they're going to be a little bit more careful. Now, there has been some people in Facebook groups that says, well, there's this app that you can report police corruption. It's only on the federal level. Unless it's the federal police, that app doesn't work. They really don't care what report you file. It's called Denuncia Paisano. I did a video on it, and it's only for federal employees. They claim they'll take your report and pass it on to the local police or whoever it was that stopped you, but normally it goes into File 13. And I actually confirmed that. I spoke to somebody in the Denuncia Paisano that works in that app, and they basically said anything other than federal, it basically is thrown away. So what you want to do, it's not me, is look, just give me the ticket. Just give me the ticket. Just give me the ticket. And just be insistent. And I'm not being, yeah, but you know what? And don't be rude. Be nice. Say, hey, I did, you know what? I apologize, officer. I was speeding. Give me the ticket. And he might give you a citation. If it is an honest officer that was stopping you for an honest citation and he was going to give you a citation, he's going to give you a citation regardless. So if you say, give me the ticket, and he gives you the ticket, there's really nothing you can do. And actually offering that officer that's going to give you the ticket and actually gives you the citation, probably if you would have offered him money, it wouldn't have taken the money. Normally the officer that wants corruption, and what's happening here is because especially the current administration has really cracked down on it, and a lot of police departments have, they don't want to be the ones to approach you for the money. They want you to be the one that gives them the money, because basically their excuse is, well, I don't know, he just gave me money. I didn't ask for anything. I didn't ask. It doesn't get them off the hook. But if you see what I'm talking about as far as corruption, that's where you'll see the corruption. So do people get stopped for trumped up charges and trying to get a bribe? Yes. But is there a way to handle it? Easiest way is just to say, give me the ticket. And normally any corrupt cop isn't going to give you it's the same thing. If you're in Cancun, you're walking down the street and two tourist cops come up to you and say, hey, do you have any drugs on you? No, I don't. I don't have any drugs on me. Would you mind, you know what? Search me. I don't, if you want to take me to jail, and you know what? Or you can't search me. And you know what? If you want to take me to jail, take me to jail. Whatever you need to do, take me to jail. And normally they're asking because, but you can be in real trouble because you're drunk and you're this or you're that. Well, you know what? Then take me to jail. I don't know what to tell you. Normally when that happens, if they're going to take you to jail, they're going to take you to jail. But if you say, take me to jail, and you're not offering them money, they're going to say, well, you're not worth our time. They don't want to book you into the jail. And they don't want to, unless you tick them off, they're not gonna take their time to drive you down to the jail, put you in the jail, and all of that stuff just because, I don't know, they thought you had drugs or you're drunk. So that's probably, thank you, great things to know. How much do they charge for traffic violations in Mexico? They're $100 here. It just depends. Some violations can be very major violations, just like in the United States and other areas. Some violations can be, but speeding is not more than a couple of hundred pesos. It's not much. The other thing that you'll find that in your parking, they do this a lot too. What they will do is they will give you a parking ticket. Then the next thing you know, your license plate is missing. The reason why the license plate is missing is because they take the license plates to the main office, and in order for you to pay your ticket, the way they make sure you pay your ticket is to take your license plate. So don't freak out if your license plate is missing and you have a citation on your parking citation. They did that. They used to do that a lot in San Miguel, and that's the way they make sure that you show up. It's the same thing as taking your driver's license. What some people do, I don't do this. I just figure if they're going to take my driver's license, I'll just get a new one later on or whatever, or I'll pay the fine. Or if we're traveling where I can't go back to, I'll just get another driver's license. The states aren't really connected. Now, I'm going to get into the next thing. Standing mannequin, how are you doing? Trick or treat. Actually, believe it or not, my birthday's in October, close to Halloween. But the next thing that I'm going to go into is driver's licenses. Okay, do I need a Mexican driver's license to drive in Mexico? I would suggest that you get one if you're a resident. If you're not a resident or you're here on an FMM, you can drive with your state driver's license, just some type of driver's license. You can drive with a foreign driver's license here in Mexico. But you can also get a driver's license here in Mexico. Now, in some places, and here's another example where someone might say the rules are just suggestions, and other places they aren't suggestions. And this is what I have always stressed: is it always works differently everywhere in Mexico. It works differently. I've lived in San Miguel de Allende. I've lived in Mexico here in Monterrey, and I've been to different parts of Mexico, and it always works differently in different parts. In Mexico City, you can get a driver's license. You can just go in and apply, and you pretty much walk out with one. In San Miguel de Allende, you have to take, and actually you don't have to know any Spanish. You don't have to take a driver's test. There's a lot of facilitators that you can get your stuff. In San Miguel de Allende, you kind of have to take a driver's test, but it's kind of, and then you have to take a medical. But the doctor's right next door. It's sort of like the pharmacies here. And then in Monterrey, I actually had to take a driver's test. I actually had to take it on the computer, the written test, and I actually had to get in a car with a traffic cop and drive around the block and do a driving test, just like when I was 16 years old. So nothing's the same. And that's why I always warn you, when you have a YouTuber that's only been in one place and only lived in one place, when he's trying to tell you, well, this is the way Mexico works. Not necessarily. Mexico does not work the same everywhere. There are a lot of things that work the same, of course, but there are things that work differently. And even I'm just about to do a video about the regularization program. Last session, someone asked me about what the status was, and I checked. And I'm going to give an update on the regularization program. But the regularization program is different. You go into an I&M office. So if you have somebody or a YouTuber out of Merida saying, oh, it's real easy. You do this, you do that. Oh, Merida is also actually happens to be one of the most lenient offices to get regularization. Other offices, like San Miguel de Allende, which I'm going to tell you right now, if you had multiple entries or you were doing border runs, they won't even consider your application with multiple entries. So it just depends where you're at. So there is no definite answer in Mexico as to how things work. And Nerd Uno says, I recall I was stopped in Mexico for not wearing a seatbelt. The officer had his code book out and the violation and the amount of the fine. It stated it was 10% of your income. Actually, it probably is 10% of I think, it should be the UMA now, but it actually used to be traffic fines were figured out on the minimum wage. So when they said 10% of your income, what I'm thinking is they were probably saying 10% of the minimum wage at the time. Now they use the UMA formula, so that might be where they came up with the 10%. But now all fines are figured out on the UMA number. And that's when we were talking about immigration, how it's kind of weird that immigration's financial solvency requirements are like half of what the consulates are asking. That was back in 2003. Yeah, they were using the minimum wage back in 2003. It wasn't until 2016 that they started using the UMA number. So that's probably that's when they meant what they meant by 10% of your income. Probably they were talking about the minimum wage. And maybe there was different fines for speeding. It was maybe 50% of the minimum wage or 80% of the minimum wage. But that's probably what they were referring to. But everybody's using this new UMA formula. But even immigration is here. So you might go to an immigration office and they might say it's $1,600 or $1,700 a month, and then you go to the consulate and they're telling you it's like almost $3,000 a month. So that's one of the things that you need to be aware of. Now, as far as the last part that I want to talk to is I want to talk to you about getting into an accident. And this is another thing. This is not a law and this is not a rule. That's just a suggestion. This will happen. If you get in a car accident, if blood is shed, if there is an injury, or not even blood, if there's a major injury in the accident, both drivers automatically get detained. Okay? Both drivers are detained and taken to jail. All right? And this is an important thing to know, because you're going to be like, it wasn't my fault. Why are they taking me to jail? It's because that's the law. Everybody gets detained. Now, here's my advice. And this gets back to the legal requirements. Do you need insurance in Mexico? Yes. If you have insurance in the United States, does that insurance work in Mexico? No. You have to have a Mexican policy. You have to have Mexico car insurance. And when you get in a car accident, the two most important protections that you have if you get detained are your car insurance and your consulate. Okay? Those are the two major protections. Now, dual nationals won't have consulate protection. If you get your Mexican citizenship, you won't have consulate protection. You could still ask for the consulate, but you're not guaranteed if you're a dual citizen. To Mexico, you're considered a Mexican citizen, even if you have American citizenship, by birth or by 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 birth or by naturalization. Either way around, they consider you a Mexican citizen. Now, what I used to do, because I used to travel from McAllen to Monterrey quite often to visit family, before I moved here, and I get a tip. I called Geico and I asked them. Now, there's plenty of places on the border where you can purchase it too. There's like Casa de Cambios, we call them exchange houses where they exchange money, but they also sell Mexican car insurance. Let's say I was going to be in Mexico for a week. I could buy a policy for $35 a day. I actually would just go online. It was Geico gave me the phone number. They had I guess a corresponding insurance company that they suggested. And then they just you fill out a form. Who are you insured for by in the United States? And then you buy your liability insurance and you buy your car insurance. And then you can buy it by the day, you can buy it by the week, and you can also buy it by the month or by the year or by the 6 months. So what I would do is the day before we'd go on the trip, I'd buy insurance and I'd say, I'm going to be in Mexico from this day to this day. And then if we stayed a couple of extra days, then I would renew the insurance before we, the day it was going to expire. And Standing Mannequin says it happened to me in La Paz. Actually, and then you said, I'm glad I was covered. What happened to you in La Paz, Standing Mannequin? Did you actually get detained, or were you had an accident and you had to use your insurance? Nerd Uno, $35 a day. Can get a year at Sanborn's for 100. Yes, actually, the daily rate is more. What I actually did, to be honest with you, I actually, but this was back in 2016, 2015. In 2015, I actually used to be able to get it for like $80 for a whole year. And I didn't realize that. And I was paying $35 a day, and we were paying for, a week of a couple $100 or whatever for a couple of weeks. And all of a sudden, one day I decided same website, same insurance company. I wish I still had the information, but they said, well, let me see if I do a year or half a year. And it was actually $80 for the whole year. So these insurance companies will kind of rip you off. And actually what I did was I would just get it for, I think it was like $70, $60. It was like $60 for half a year, and then it was like $80 for the whole year. So I would just go ahead and get the Mexican insurance. Now, the reason why you need Mexican insurance, and if you live here and you drive your car around, get with a local insurance broker to get yourself insured. You have to drive around with car insurance. And I'm going to tell you why. If there's an injury in a car accident, they're going to detain you, and they detain everybody. They take the drivers to jail until they figure out whose fault it is. Okay. And figuring out whose fault it is could take up to a couple of hours to a couple of days. Now, here in Mexico, when you get in a car accident, you don't call the police. The first people, as a matter of fact, what happens here is it even ties up traffic. You don't even move your vehicle. What you do is you call your insurance company first before you call the cop. Now, if it's an injury accident, yes, you're going to call 911. We need to get somebody, we need to get help. We need to get ambulances. I'm not saying, I'm talking about anything, everybody's okay. And, you call your insurance company. Okay. Standing Mannequin. I was detained with the other driver until they figured out what happened. Yes. And sometimes detention. Oh, and then Standing Mannequin said, they towed both our vehicles to the station. They showed me the video of the incident, charged me a fee to then let me go. No one was injured. Okay. Well, actually, here, if actually they detain you until they figured out what happened. But here, if blood is, they will detain you. Now, here's the important part. You contact your insurance agents. The insurance agency has lawyers. They will go to the jail. They will bail you out, or they will argue for you, or your insurance agent is going to be the person that argues for you, especially if it wasn't your fault. The first thing they're going to do is they're going to say what happened, and you're going to explain what happened. They're going to talk to witnesses. The ones that are talking to witnesses are not the police like you do back home. It's going to be your insurance company. Then the two insurance agents will argue it out amongst themselves. They are very well trained on the traffic laws and whose fault it would be. And the both insurance agencies, and they're very good. They're going to be honest. They're going to say it was your fault, or the other insurance agent's going to say, yeah, my client was at fault. They're not going to, but if you're really adamant that, hey, I didn't do that, like he said I went into his lane, I never did that. Your insurance agent is the one that's going to argue with you. You don't talk to anybody. When I got in a car accident, I talked to the guy, but we didn't talk anything until the insurance agents got there. But anything with the accident, we didn't talk. We just said, what time of day, how are you doing? What do you do for a living? You don't talk about the accident, or you don't say, oh, it was my fault. When the insurance agents get there, and usually these they have mobile units that travel around all over, and they get there. Sometimes they might not get there because if there's an injury and they need to take you to the hospital, all of that stuff, the insurance agent will figure out where you're at and get to you at the hospital. What they will do is they will be the ones that will argue and will get you out of jail. So that's one of the reasons why you need an insurance policy. The other reason is because you'll be liable, and they will do things from keeping you in jail until you're able to pay the other person for whatever damages you did, or taking your vehicle, those types of things. And your U.S. consulate. If you're a U.S. citizen, you're here, you're a resident, and you're not a dual citizen, then the first thing you always do is say, I want my consulate. The consulate's not going to get you out of jail like your insurance company will, but the consulate can make sure you're being treated correctly. Also, the consulate can get a hold of your family. The consulate can do things, in other words, or they can argue your case to the police to let you go or whatever, but they're not there to get you out. They're there to make sure that you get communications with your family. You get communications with your lawyers. You get let's say they didn't let you talk to, let's say they just put you in handcuffs, put you in the back of a car, and you don't, I want to call my insurance. What happened to my insurance? I don't care. We're going to take you to jail. Then you know what? Your consulate are going to be the people that can help you. And it doesn't matter. Even in the United States, anytime I arrested a Mexican citizen, I had to contact the Mexican consulate. That is a requirement of any law enforcement or any government. They have to contact, even if you got arrested in Russia, they are bound to call the consulate or the embassy or the closest consulate. They have to notify the country of your citizenship. And standing mannequin. Yes, an agent arrived to assist me very quickly, but witness standing up for me had the cops really dislike me. Yeah, that's why the agent's there to argue it out for you. And usually these agents, literally, you'll see them on the side of the road, all up and down the road, not necessarily on the highway so much, but in the city, you'll see them all the time, basically going up and down the road in these little vehicles that are marked all over with the insurance. And those are the guys, that's all they do. They just wait for a phone call for an accident and they show up. It's not me. Auto insurance is mandatory in the States. No insurance, the car stays parked until you get at least catastrophic coverage. I'm going to sell my car and go this taxi, Uber, Didi route, and my feet. Actually, it's not me. A lot of people do that. It is required in the United States. Some states, now here's the other thing too. For example, let's say you live in Texas and you have to renew your registration every year. Well, then some registrations require that you do emissions tests to renew it. Some you also have to show proof of insurance. So how do you do that if your car's in Mexico? Well, you could insure your car in the United States, but you're paying double insurance. So those are a lot of things that you got to think about it. As a matter of fact, I could have qualified for permanent residency, but we were going to bring our U.S. vehicles. And so I applied for temporary residency, thinking that we were going to bring our U.S. vehicles. And when we started figuring out all the expenses and the cost of keep maintaining insurance in Texas, maintaining the registration, all of that stuff versus the cost of Mexico, we went to CarMax, we sold both of our cars, and guess what? we went and got a Mexican vehicle, and standing mannequin was my liability coverage was only 60 for 6 months. That sounds about right. Standing mannequin. If you do it for the daily basis, it's going to be like $35 a day. It literally, it's kind of like the rental car thing. If you rent a car for the day, it's like $75. But if you rent it for the week, you get it for $20 a day. Yeah, actually, Nerda, you can renew Texas vehicle registration online, and the state the vehicle is out of the state. I didn't know that, Nerd. As far as Texas was concerned, all I remember is we were asked for the. Actually, that was probably before the online, and also I used to maintain Texas driver's license, and you used to be able to do it online. But now what DPS has done is you can only renew it once online, but the next time you have to actually present yourself in person to show that you're still living in Texas. So it's kind of weird. And then Nerd Uno, I would suggest people carry food and water in their vehicle. In 2017, I was in a 50 vehicle pileup due to fog. I was on site for 12 hours. And let me tell you something, when those pileups happen, we've been stuck in some of those pileups. And what we have always done is keep our tank, never let your tank get less than halfway full, even if you have everything calculated. For example, I can calculate that I can get to, I don't know, this place or this gas station on a tank of gas and still have a quarter of a tank. What we used to do is anytime our tank started getting close to half, we would stop to get gas. The reason why is just what Nerd Uno was saying. You get stuck on one of those pileups and you literally are sitting in your car. And we've sat in our vehicle for up to 4, 5, 6 hours before, especially coming into Monterrey. The Highway 57 coming into Monterrey, there's a lot of, actually we've even had some where there was trucks on fire. In one instance, we were stuck there for 3 or 4 hours or 5 hours, and there was actually trucks on fire. By the time they cleared it, trucks were still smoldering and were still on fire. So, and also Nerd Ono said, I also recall the highway from Nuevo Laredo to Monterrey was shut down due to snow for 3 days in 2018. They closed it while people on the road, so everyone was stuck. I don't know about what happened. Yeah, there was a snowstorm in 2018. It actually snowed in South Texas, which is very rare. But you just need to be careful. Always have a good, sufficient amount of gas. And those are the things that you need to be careful of driving here. So I hope I explained the rules enough. Does anybody have any other questions? I've already eaten up my 1 hour with explaining the rules here. Anybody have any other questions about driving in Mexico? Any other comments? If you want to make a comment. Diane Doris, is that the normal price for insurance? $80 a year. Is this good insurance mean full protection like Allstate, Geico for a basic car, 30 years of no accidents and no tickets, my record? Blaine, usually that is for liability insurance. If you want full coverage, I don't remember how much my full coverage insurance costs per year, but it's a couple of $100 per year. But I have a Mexican vehicle. More than likely, if you're going to get full coverage, like you're going to be living here, have temporary residency status, it's the $80 a year is usually when you're coming in for a couple of days. And usually what I used to use it for was just liability coverage. That's what you have to cover here. Just like in the United States, you have to have, just like It's Not Me was saying that in the United States, you have to have insurance. Well, it's really not insurance. You have to have liability. It's insurance, but it's not full coverage. You're not required to have full coverage, but you're required to have liability. That's the same thing here in Mexico. You're required to have liability insurance. So the $80 a year, like if you're in the United States, I don't know how it is in Canada, I only refer to North, South, and Central America and Latin America, or North and Latin America. But what the way it works is, if you notice, if you're in the United States and you only get liability coverage, it's like $20 a month or $30 a month if you have a real good record. And then of course it's like $80 a month if you have, full coverage. It's the same thing in Mexico. But what we normally do is you pay for the whole year. You get a policy for the whole year. And I actually, maybe I'll put it in the comment section below how much we pay for full coverage insurance. I have a 2017 Grand Cherokee, I think it is. I'm not sure the year, but I can tell you more or less how much we pay for full coverage. The $80 we're talking about is usually for when you come in as a tourist and you're only here for 180 days or 3 days or a week, that type of thing. And it only is liability. Also, your driving record does count. The little fender bender that I got into, my insurance is going to go up next year. I don't know by how much, but it is going to go up because I got in a car accident. Now, the deductible that I had was $1,000 on my deductible. So, and the repair on my car was less than $1,000. So we took it to the shop and repaired it ourselves. And so I don't know if that's going to affect my insurance rates, but it works more or less like it does in the United States. And yes, VJ, maybe I actually mentioned this earlier in my, they're called the Green Angels. Yes, I thought it was the Blue Angels, but it's the Green Angels. I don't know. The Blue Angels is the people that fly in the planes. That's probably why I said the Blue Angels. There is a group that goes up and down the toll roads, especially on major highways. They're called the Green Angels. Those are the people that I was talking about, that they're in trucks. They usually have flashing yellow lights. They go up and down the highways and they will help you. They'll help you change a tire. They'll help you get into town if you need to. They're sort of like roadside assistance. What a lot of people don't realize, a lot of people don't like well, first of all, we always say travel on toll roads. And then there's a YouTuber that talks about toll roads being illegal, but they really are legal. And actually, I think Retribution had a question about that for my brother-in-law to answer, and we're going to cover that. My brother-in-law, I haven't been able to get together with him to do another video. But when you pay the tolls on the toll road, you're also paying, and we didn't know this when we didn't find this out till probably a couple of years after we were traveling the toll roads. You kind of pay for an insurance. You're paying for the maintenance of the road, kind of, sort of, and you're also you pay kind of like an insurance. And these Green Angels are actually, now I know they're all up and down all the highways in Mexico, but they are mostly up and down on the toll roads, and they're there to help you out. So basically, they will stop. They're in uniforms, kind of like, they look kind of official like police, but they're not police. They're individuals that are there. They have a whole truck with tools, everything to try to get you on your way. But how reliable are they? It depends. Like I say, everything in Mexico. What I mean by it depends is because hopefully they'll be on the road when you have problems. There's been times I've been on a trip and haven't seen one Green Angel in the whole trip, literally, on either side of the road, coming up or down. We used to travel a lot between San Miguel and Monterrey, and that highway. I've gone on numerous trips where I haven't seen them at all. Then I've gone on other trips, and I see them a lot when I'm going from Monterrey to McAllen on the stretch on the toll road from Monterrey to McAllen. I see them a lot, almost every single time. So it just depends. They're reliable when they're around. The other thing that you will find is that the police don't really, they stop to help you, but they don't stop. The police are not, the police functions here are a lot different than what we see in the United States. In the United States, we always think of as a cop as, they're the ones that direct traffic when they handle accidents. They're there to protect me. And I always say this in my safety videos, and this is getting a little bit off the topic, but the cops serve a function of protecting the public, but their also function is to, maybe the simplest way is say fight crime. So, for example, if I give an example of the confrontation that happened on the Columbia Bridge, the police will start getting in a confrontation with the cartels. That confrontation, the one that I actually had in my video where you heard the gunshots and everything else, that was at the actual Columbia Bridge. And it was a confrontation between the Fuerza Civil. The Fuerza Civil is Nuevo León, their special units. Well, actually, there's a state police basically for Nuevo León, but they have in those areas, they have special units. They started getting in a shooting with the cartel. Now, what do we think? Oh, they're there to... oh, they're going to protect the public and they're going to grab us and they're going to take us to safety. No, they start shooting at the police and the police start shooting back. And whoever's in the middle, they don't care. The cartels don't care. The police don't care, because the police's job is to neutralize a threat at whatever cost, even at the cost of civilians. It's not like that in the United States. In the United States, the police have this function of, especially now with all these incidents, what's their first thing? Their first reaction is to get everybody to a safe place and then address the threat. Here, they address the threat, and whoever's in the way is in the way. So that's why I always talk in my safety videos is this, and then especially when a lot of people say, well, I did my trip to Nuevo Laredo. There was a lot of military and police. I felt so safe. Well, the military and police are not on that road to protect you. The military and police are on the road to get rid of the cartel. Okay, so if they get into a fight with the cartel, they're not there to pull you out of it. They're not there to take you to safety. They're there to start shooting back. So that's why I always say it's always about being in the wrong place at the wrong time. And I'm not trying to, please, I'm not a fear monger like, I'm not trying to scare people from coming to Mexico. But like I said, you have to have common sense, and you got to know that, okay, if I see a heavy police presence in an area, it's not because I'm safe, it's because something's going on. And so that's where you need to have that things work a lot different. So what happens is, like, let's say you're on the side of the road. You'll see a federal police officer. He'll just keep going. The traffic police will just keep going past you. They won't stop. They won't ask you what's wrong. Maybe they might. Sometimes they do, especially if it's a foreign plated vehicle. Maybe they might because they're there to, maybe something's going on weird here. But usually it's the Green Angels. What they might do is they might say, hey, that's not my job. I'm not here to help these people on the side of the road. But you know what? I'll call the Green Angels and I'll have them come over. Or they might even stop and say, are you okay? Yeah, my car broke down. You know what? Let me give the Green Angels a call. And then they'll leave. They're not going to stick. Oh, they might stick around and talk to you for a little while. But that's their function is not necessarily there to, they're there for public safety. But public safety, the concept of public safety here is a lot different than it is in the United States. So you got to remember, when you come to Mexico, you're coming to a totally different country with totally different rules. And Retribution said, when you see heavy police presence, that means there's a heavy cartel presence that you're not seeing. They don't just hang around safe areas and when that don't need them. And that's true. It's very true. As a matter of fact, what you're going to hear, this last safety video I did with all the shooting going on in Nuevo Laredo and the Columbia Bridge because the cartel leader got arrested, they actually sent more military. They actually sent, as a result of that, the government basically sent more military into the area to help the law enforcement. And not only did they send more military, but the state of Coahuila sent more reinforcements, the state of Nuevo León sent more reinforcements, and Tamaulipas sent more reinforcements to that area. And then Tamaulipas has its own problems right now with a lot of stuff that's going on there. So when you see a heavy police presence or a heavy military presence, they're usually there because they've been called in and because there's problems in the area. Actually, that's a warning sign, not a I feel safe sign. Now, what you will see on some highways, like the one to Monterrey to McAllen, usually when you're on the one to Nuevo Leon, Fuerza Civil, their elite units, they're all dressed up in SWAT gear. They go up and down that highway all day. I mean, that's just part of their patrolling, not necessarily. But if you see, instead of seeing one Fuerza Civil every, I don't know, 50 miles, and you start seeing like 10 Fuerza Civil trucks together, then there's an issue. That's where you have to be careful. Roger, yes, actually, in Nuevo Laredo, that is one thing I was telling. I might contradict myself a little bit when I was talking about crooked cops in Nuevo Laredo. This happens a little bit more, Roger, with the people that are traveling from Colombia. What they usually do is they run traffic on that road from the Columbia Bridge. Now, what I do know the cops will do in Nuevo Laredo is if they have escorts through the town. That's what I always suggest people take instead of going through the town by themselves. And they'll take escorts through the town. They'll escort you. But there's a stretch, especially on the Columbia, because that Columbia Bridge Road is very desolate. The cops will stop you. What has happened in the past, there's two things that have happened. The cops will stop you, and they're in cahoots with the crooked, the corrupt cops will stop you, and they're in cahoots with bandits. And the bandits basically will come after the cops stop you. So they'll use the cops as an excuse to get you stopped by the side of the road. And then basically once they stop you, the bandits show up and the cops like run away, kind of like, oh shoot, and then kind of like you run away too. And then they box you in and then they rob you, but they're kind of in cahoots. The other thing that happened, Roger, is that they will say, stop you, and they'll do the thing that you were speeding, and they try to extort money. But like I said, the best thing to do is just insist, give me the ticket, give me the ticket, give me the ticket, give me the ticket. And actually, people have asked me on that road, like, oh, well, Columbia, what do I need to look out for if I take the Columbia Bridge? Because at one point, the Columbia Bridge was a little bit safer than going through town. And I used to say, yeah, take the Columbia Bridge. But then what I used to say, you need to be careful, drive the speed limit. And then also, not only that, but if you're driving the speed limit and they stop you, you can actually look, I was driving the speed limit. I don't know what I was stopped for. But always be polite. That's the most important thing. And also, you got to remember one thing with law enforcement here. It's not like in the United States where you can tell them, I know my rights, screw you. Everything's about respect here. Everything from, especially in law enforcement, I'm going to tell you right now, it's the same thing with I won't get into cartels, but it's all about respect. And actually, everything's about power and respect. So the more respectful you are to the police officer, sí, oficial, yes, oficial, I'm sorry, oficial. The more you do that, I know it sounds stupid, but it's going to get you a long way, especially if you don't want to pay that thing. And, I mean, like I said, give me the fine. What's the fine? Give me the ticket. I mean, what's the worst they can do? Give you a ticket. But the problem is most foreigners will just say, well, okay. And then a lot of times they'll even tell you, well, the fine's like 1,000 pesos, but we could fix it right here for 200. Well, if you want to pay it, then that's up to you, but you're inviting, we always talk about Mexico being corrupt, but that's why Mexico is corrupt, because you just bought into paying them 200 pesos. And if you might have, and like I said before, if you say, give me the ticket, give me the ticket, give me the ticket, more than likely you're not going to have to pay 0 pesos because they're probably going to let you go. And then let me see here. I've got my times coming up. And There is a number, Roger. Actually, someone was asking for the Green Angels. Hold on. Is there a number or email address for the Green Angels in case you need them? Yes, there is. Actually, if you dial on your cell phone, and you're roaming, of course, you're going to be roaming. If you dial 078 on your cell phone, or you dial 911, there is a 911 system. Now, remember one thing about the 911 system here in Mexico. It's not as sophisticated as the 911 system in the United States. In the United States, you call 911 on your cell phone. They have cell phone trackers. They know your location. Well, if you call 911, you're going to have to be able to tell them where you're at. If you get in a car accident, 911, there used to be a bunch of numbers. If for the ambulance call 071, for the 72, but now everything went to 911. Now you can call, and if it's not 078, it's usually star 078 or pound 078, but try 078 first and see if it goes through. But it used to be there was just different numbers. 078 was for the Green Angels, 071 was for the police. Now everything's 911. The whole nation went to a 911 system. But it isn't sophisticated. It's not like, or if you're at your house in Ajijic and you dial 911, they don't know exactly where you're calling from. And some cities have it sophisticated. But you got to be able to tell them, okay, I'm on the mile marker. Okay, I'm on Highway 57. I'm close to an Oxxo between, I don't know, Saltillo and Matawala or whatever. Just always be aware of where you're at or be able to see that on the GPS. And also on the toll roads, Nerduno has a very good point. There's also these little phones that you can pick up on the toll roads. And they also post a sign, usually call on your, and usually it'll say, give you the emergency numbers, what to call if you're stuck. And usually usually it's that 078 if you have roadside assistance. So, and also don't forget, and Roger, don't forget there's emergency phone located all along the toll roads. Yeah, what I just mentioned right now. And Cindy, the Green Angels number, I believe is 07. Actually, someone just texted it to me right now. Let me see here. It's 078, and it's free too. The Green Angels are free. They don't charge anything. They're there for you. Okay, anything else? I've gone 37 minutes over. I know a lot of people, the long form content is hard here, so I like to try to keep it to an hour. So if we don't have anything more, the next stop is going to be Cabo. I'll see you in Cabo. Like I said, I'm paying my own way. No GoFundMe to Disney World or anywhere else in Mexico. I pay for it myself. And hopefully I can do some videos and also do a live stream so I can say hello to my community. Here at Retire Life in Mexico, our community is all about community. We're about building a good community. Visit us on Facebook. I don't tolerate the drama that goes on in other Facebook groups. We have a very drama-free group. We have a very helpful group of people helping each other. And if people start insulting each other, I don't have any tolerance for it. I kick them out. I don't allow promotions unless I know, actually, the only people that I do allow YouTubers to post their videos and get their stuff out, but I don't allow people selling real estate or people trying to sell expat services, stuff like that. And Belinda Doris, have fun in Cabo. Thanks for the webinar. Well, thank you, Blaine, not Belinda, Blaine. Thank you, Blaine, for stopping by. So, Roger, check the bridges every time you pass one. There are very accurate location markers. Yes, always be aware. And the other thing, I also have did a safety video not too long ago about calling your family members, share your location. I know a lot of us are worried about privacy issues. I really understand that. I was in the law enforcement realm, so I know what it is about privacy issues, and I know what it is about Big Brother looking over your shoulder. But always remember, here in Mexico, we use Life 360. There's There's another app called Zenly. iPhone has location sharing. Find My iPhone. We actually use Find My iPhone and Life 360. So if someone stops us, because there was an instance where they made them shut down their iCloud account, where they made them log out of their iCloud account on their cell phone. Well, we still have a second tracker on our phones. So we use Life 360. Actually we use it with the whole family. So my brother-in-law, sister-in-law know where I am. Just Will and my wife. We have nothing to hide from each other, but it's for safety. We always call. We call when we leave. We call when we arrive. We call when we're halfway. We call to let our family know where we're at. That's one of the things to keep an eye out. Also keep an eye out of where you're at. And even if your GPS, because let's say your GPS isn't working, just like Roger said, hey, keep an eye on those mile markers. Call your family. If you get a phone signal, I'm at mile marker or whatever, going north up to the border. They should already know about your trip. WhatsApp has a share feature where you can share your trip. Google Maps, I think, even has a thing where you can say, I want to share my location while I'm on my trip. iPhone, I think, has the same thing through iMessage. So use those tools when you travel. And, let Big Brother look over your shoulder that time. I mean, I don't know what else to tell you, but it's for your own good and for your own safety. Just remember, it's not just Big Brother looking over your shoulder. It's also your wife, your father, your mother looking over your shoulder too, to make sure that you're okay. So with that being said, thanks a lot. Roger says, be safe, brother. Vijay, thank you. I'm going to enjoy Cabo. I actually haven't been, I even mentioned in my last live stream, I have a hard time answering questions about the Baja area because I've never been, and we're very looking forward to it. The next live stream, I probably won't have any subject topic other than, hey, from Cabo, and I'm on the balcony, depending where we're at. I don't know. Hopefully, and I'm only going to be streaming from an iPad with a software called Prism Studio. So I'm going to have to figure it out. Hopefully, I can get that live stream in from Cabo just to say hello to the community. And also, and another thing before I leave, I'm going to be posting links. Last live stream, I talked about free information versus paid information. I'm going to start posting a section of links of trusted information, of information that's accurate. So from here on out, on all my videos, of resources that I deem, like I did in my last live stream, I'm going to start posting those links, both paid and free. And I'm going to start trying to collect useful resources. Here at Retired Life in Mexico, we're not about making money. I'm here to create a community that we can all help each other out. I don't live off of YouTube. I worked 30 years of my life for a pension. I have a real job. YouTube's not my job. And, I don't do YouTube because I don't want to work. I do YouTube to try to help the community. And that's what's important. Just remember that. And I'm also going to put up my email address for my free consultations. And we're going to share as much information as we can. What I can't do, we ask the community to help each other out. If you have any suggestions, after this live stream, leave comments in the comment section below. Feel free to have discussions. If I'm not able to answer questions, a lot of times someone else is able to answer those questions, and I don't have all the answers. Like I always said, I don't have all the answers. There's no such thing as an expert. Anybody who tells you that they're an expert on Mexico is lying to you. There is no such thing as an expert on Mexico. So what we try to do is build a community that everybody helps each other out. And we look for quality, not quantity. So don't look for profit. We look to help. So always remember that. And I'm going to leave you with what I always leave you with. And I always used to say, see you soon, but I have a new one. Stay safe and stay informed. And until next time, we'll see you soon.